Sticking with education news now, yesterday Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that he was tapping a former political rival, 2002 Democratic gubernatorial nominee CarlMcCall, to be the new chair of SUNY's Board of Trustees. The former state comptroller is joining me now. He's in New York City. He's going to be discussing his new role in depth here. Mr. McCall, it is great to see you.
Liz, it's good to be with you. Always good to be with you.
Well, thanks for making time for us. So just briefly, I mean, I know actually that you and Andrew Cuomo, although you had been at odds in 2002, had buried the hatchet. You were very active in helping him in 2010. How did this come about? Did you ask to be elevated? You've been on the board since 2007.
No, not really. First of all, you know, the idea of a rivalry. We had an election, you know, and we were rivals in the election. That wasn't such a big deal. And since then, I've really watched what he's done, and I was very impressed with the way in which he came into office and took on tough problems. Look, the state was adrift. Our finances were a mess. There was very little confidence in government. People were giving up on New York State. And Andrew Cuomo came in with a plan to revitalize our finances, a plan to curb spending, a plan not to raise taxes, and a plan to really try to restore confidence in government, to show people that government could work for them. And the legislature followed his lead, and they performed very well last year. So when I saw that, I was very supportive of it. And I've always, as you know, been committed to education. I was president of the Board of Education in New York City, and I've been a trustee at SUNY for the last several years. And usually when there's a new governor, that governor appoints a person that he wants to be the chair of the board. Right. So Andrew and I talked about that, and it happened yesterday. Yeah,
quite quickly, actually, because the gentleman who you're replacing, Carl Hayden, had told a different news outlet that he had just gotten the word in the morning. And as you've mentioned, it is, of course, the governor's prerogative, but there isn't any real reason for the change other than it's the governor's prerogative. Does he indicate to you he wants to take SUNY, or he wants you to take SUNY, the board, into a different direction?
Not necessarily different. Well, I think we're already moving in a new direction. We're showing that SUNY can be a real force in economic development to provide jobs and economic opportunities around the state. And the governor has invested in SUNY to make that happen. He invested $140 million in programs at our 4 university centers, Stony Brook, Binghamton, Albany, and Buffalo, to build new facilities in those particular areas where we can provide new educational opportunities. We've got to keep a balance between our commitment to provide quality education while at the same time we are involved in economic development.
Yeah, that economic development piece, actually, my understanding was, if I remember correctly, that it was a pot of money that the schools actually have to compete for by putting together proposals and plans, and it sort of was born out of the Buffalo UB 2020 proposal that obviously they've been pushing for at the western part of the state. Do you agree with that approach, the competitive approach, instead of just simply awarding money to particular projects?
I quite agree with it, because they had to come in and they had to not only demonstrate their ability to spend the money, but they had to show their ability to attract additional money to go with it. So the $140 million that the governor committed has now grown to over $800 million because of additional money that's been attracted because of the quality of the projects. So we're going to spend $824 million over the next couple of years to put those projects in place. You know,
you noted, I believe, yesterday during the press conference, or perhaps in the subsequent discussions with reporters, that state support of the state university system is $1.7 billion less than it had been, I believe, since 2007. So there's been a tuition increase, or rather the different universities and colleges have the ability to increase their own tuition. I don't think that you have yet said whether you support a tuition increase. Do you?
I supported it. I voted for it on the board, and I supported it, and I asked the governor for it, and let me tell you why. The figure is $1.4 billion over the last 4 years. The state support has been reduced by $1.4 billion. Now, what does that mean? It means that we weren't able to hire full-time faculty. We have more adjunct professors, part-time people rather than full-time people. It means that a lot of courses had to be dropped. A lot of programs that students wanted couldn't be offered. So that it was a real blow to the university. So last year, with a $10 billion budget deficit, the state couldn't give us any more money. So we had to turn to the students and their families for this tuition increase. But we did it understanding that, you know, SUNY is still a real bargain. With this increase, the average tuition will be just a little over $5,000. Now, you compare that to other colleges, that's a great bargain. In fact, we have a surge in applications because families throughout the state of New York know that this is an affordable education and a good quality education. So, you know, we didn't like the idea of having an increase, but it was absolutely necessary because we had nowhere else to turn for revenue, and we badly needed it to continue to provide quality instruction to our students.
Okay, so to that end, though, we're going into a budget season with a $2 and change billion deficit. So the state is in better financial shape, although obviously still in the hole. I guess, do you believe that the state should go back to and actually increase its support of the SUNY system? Because, you know, it's been suggested that by the Assembly Democrats and others that the millionaire's tax, the continuation of the tax on wealthier residents, could fund that.
It could fund a lot of things. I mean, that's just the point. That a lot of people think that's our answer. Look, if there's additional revenue, we'd like to get our piece of it. Whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But the fact is, yes, we've got to go and make our case. We've got to make the case that, yes, we'd like more money, and we hope we'll get it. But, you know, one of the things I said yesterday is there are three things I think the SUNY system ought to show. One is that it's providing quality education. Two, that it's accessible, that our students can afford it. But third, that we're accountable. We've got to show that we can do more with less. We've got to show that the taxpayers who are investing in supporting us, that we're using that money properly. We're trying to share services among colleges. In certain places where we have 2 or 3 colleges that are in some proximity, we can make sure that they share services. So rather than having one IT department for a college, maybe there can be a joint IT program for several colleges. And maybe courses could be offered in different locations rather than replicating them all in the same place. So we're doing our part to be accountable. To
that end, this idea of various different campuses or more than one campus sharing the same president, I know, is something that has been floated by the chancellor. Some folks, lawmakers, are very dead set against that. What's your view on that?
Well, my view is that those people who are upset about it, give us some more money, we won't have to do it. There's a point at which you can't afford to have an expensive administrative structure if you have less than a certain number of students. So a college that has, say, less than 4,000 students, they have the same administrative structure with a college with 10,000 students. So when you get to the point of sharing services and consolidating, you've got to put everything on the table, including the possibility in some instances where one president could serve 2 schools. You know, in these days when money is scarce, you have to be inventive, you have to be flexible, you have to find new ways of providing service. Well,
you also have a situation, I believe, where UUP, which is the union element of the SUNY system, is still negotiating for a contract. Do you think that they should actually accept concessions? Some of these concessions, obviously, was something that PEF had a difficult time swallowing, and we're seeing that play out now in this revote that's going on at the moment with that contract.
I can understand all unions, you know, advocating for their members not only to stay in place. We don't want to lay off people, but people want increases, and we have to consider that. But we have to consider it in light of what's available. If there are available resources, we certainly want to provide more to our faculty. They are the heart and soul of our campuses. On the other hand, if we don't have the resources, there's not very much we can do for them. and those negotiations are ongoing as we speak.
Do you, just before I let you go, unfortunately we're almost out of time, there was a concern in particular among the Black and Latino members of the Assembly in the majority that SUNY would be increasing its tuition and no longer accessible to low-income families or even lower middle-income families because it's so important in the way that so many people come up through the system, including some of these lawmakers. Is this something that you are also worried about?
Oh, sure, I'm worried about it. That's why we tried to keep this increase as modest as possible. And we also have some provisions in it for certain students, depending on their financial situation, they're not going to have to pay the increase. The college will actually give them a credit to make up for the increase. So students who are at the lowest level of our economic ladder will not have to pay the increase. We are very mindful of the fact that this system has got to be accessible, available to the people who need it most, and that certainly is my commitment. I was able to go to the same place I think you went, and it didn't cost me any money. I went all the way through college, you know, on scholarship.
Well,
and so I understand the importance of that.
It did cost me money,
okay, we'll see that. Okay,
but
I didn't pay it.
You didn't pay a dime. So, okay, some of us did better than others. I want to thank you very much, CarlMcCall, for being with us.
Thanks, Liz.
It is good to have you.
It was my pleasure. Okay, bye now.